Hi, I'm Joe, and this is A Cool Dry Place. So, to give you a little recap of where we left off, we glued this up to the other two pieces here at the front. We left this one loose so we can get our bandsaw blade changed. But what we need to do now is remove this from the cast iron table. I think it's going to be a little bit of a struggle, but it should come off. And I want to sand the outside in so it all kind of looks nice, and same thing with our curves around over here. So let's get to that. All right, hopefully this won't fight us too much. Oh, it's not going to fight at all. Yeah, it's perfect. It's like it was made for this or something. It's going to fight a little bit. Wow, that was great. I thought it was going to be a little more difficult, but that came right off. Very, very happy. Let's get this over to the bench and figure out how we're going to sand this in a little better. All right, we got this clamped up and we checked our marks to make sure that they're spot on. So this shouldn't go moving around when we sand the edge of our auxiliary table here. Have the belt sander set up. I believe there's 80 grit in there. So there's not a whole lot. We want to just kind of smooth this out, but there is a high spot right here to remove, and that is all the 2 inches thick, so that might be a little bit of work. And this, the short piece sticks out just a little bit over here in the joint. But altogether, we're really just looking to kind of smooth this out. There's just, like I say, a little bit more material to remove there. Oh, and if you recall, this is a slight curve, very, very slight curve. That's kind of why well, I would have done it this way if it was flat anyway. And right here is the center between the front and the back. So this is kind of where this curve is going to crown, right here in this spot. All right, I think we got it. There's just a faint little bit of a bandsaw mark on both the front and the back, but I do plan on getting a random orbital on here too. All right, same thing as before. We're just going to use the belt sander on the edge like that and hope for the best. It's going to be a little bit more tricky, but fortunately, you won't really see this side very well. But we just want to make it look kind of good, mostly from the top here. Not bad. Okay, I got this kind of repositioned here. So what we want to do now is kind of concentrate on getting our seams flushed up on the surface. This will go pretty quickly. If you see, I'm kind of holding the plane at a big skew to this. It's because, we have different grains converging here. I think that'll do. All right. Cool. Okay, before we get carried away doing any kind of router profile on the outsides here, I just wanted to double check to make sure by putting the metal fence on here with its metal rail if we have enough material here to be able to allow us to do a profile, or what kind of profile we can do. I have a 1/8 inch roundover bit in the router already, but I think I'm going to swap it out and put the 1/4 inch roundover bit in. It'll just be a little bit easier on my fingers and hips and stuff if I do run into it. So let's get that bit swapped out and route this thing. Brilliant. Let's do the backside a little bit. All right. Definitely some hand sanding to do. There's some burns and stuff, burns in the wood, but I think that this is going to be all right. All right, one area that I'd like to still hit with the router is this bottom side of the table right here, where we really couldn't get it when the router was flat with the axis going like this here. But if we hold the router here like this, we should be able to get these 3 edges routed with that 1/4 inch round over. So let's get her. A little burns, but I think we could sand that out. Okay, with the wood pretty well dialed in from the planing we did over at the bench, I think what would probably be a pretty good idea at this point is to transfer the holes that are in the cast iron onto the wood, both the front and the back. So I took the refill, I guess, out of a pen, and we're going to go down underneath the table and see if we can try to kind of make a circle where those holes are at. All right, I think you can see one at the back side of the mounting hole right here. It's taking my... Okay, we got the ink transferred through the cast iron table onto the wood surfaces where we're going to be drilling our holes. I went through and just double checked. So I set the square here to come down to from the cast iron surface down to the center of the holes where the mounting points are. And I just went through and I just put a pencil line there so I know where the centers are at relative to the top. And I think that was a good idea because these weren't, I was hoping for maybe a little more universal, a little more of a circle on all of these, but they're just not. Like this is probably about the best one. Some of the worst ones on the other side, we'll see that here in a minute. But something that I want to also do too, and this is going to be maybe a little more haphazardly here, or haphazardly done, is that I want to kind of center this ink mass on the line that we've drawn down from the surface, just so we get an idea of where we probably would be putting the center point of our drill to drill these out. So that's probably about the center point of the mass of the ink here. And ditto over here. Not really accurate about this. So since these are 1/4 inch and I don't want to have a whole lot of play in here, let's drill the holes just slightly over 1/4 inch. That way it will, we have just a little bit of movement, but not too much. All right, we have these marked out and I have a center punch hole here, so a little bit easier to put the drill bit in. Now I did kind of put like a depth stop on here. I don't think we need, I have it for about 1.5 inches right now. I don't think we need the hole any deeper than 1.5 inches, although it wouldn't hurt to go deeper. Because when we go to hog out the back material here, just so we could fit the bolt and the washer up in there, we're going to get rid of any extra hole depth that was there. So let's go ahead and bore these out. This is just for the 1/4 inch hole, or for the 1/4 inch bolt, I'm sorry. And the drill is just a slightly larger, one step larger. What is it? It's a 17/64 larger than the bolt it is. So there's a little bit of play there, but not much. So let's work now on the recesses that we're going to need to make in this oak so that we can slide our 2-inch bolt, I think we're going to keep it this long, up into the oak and then get it into the hole here so we can screw it into the cast iron. I have this 1 3/8 Forstner bit. I think this will work out great. And I was thinking what we'll do is we'll put it, I kind of put, you can see it maybe a little better back here, but I sort of put a center line coming up from the hole that goes into the cast iron, and then an idea of where we need to drill the first Forstner bit hole and then the second one. Because I want to kind of roughly get this shape in the end here. That's what we're looking for. So if we put the Forstner bit here, we should be just kind of getting there on the very front edge of this. That's fine. That gives us about 1 inch of wood before we get to the edge. That's great. And then we'll drill the second part right here, and that should give us just about enough clearance to be able to get our bolt up into that space. Now we do have to go rather deep with this because I'd like to come down, you know, right about here. The surface, the top side is actually on the bottom right now, but I'd like to come down about 1/4 or 3/8 of an inch away from the surface there, 3/8 if we can do it, to be able to get a washer around this bolt as well. So let's get to boring out a bunch of these holes here. All right, I installed my depth stop here. We need to go about that far. Oh, actually, let's do this. Though, might be a little bit easier for us. That's about, I think, what we're looking for. Perfect, actually. Yeah, that will be fine. So we'll get this kind of squared out with a chisel, or not squared out, but we'll take off that just to make it look pretty, the two little blip outs there, and then make this squarer down here so that we could put a washer against this surface right here. Here I'm just, I don't know, kind of removing that little peak in between there. Sort of our flat line here figured out. And this I do want to have kind of flat so that our washer has a place to register. It doesn't have to be great, but just pretty good. That's pretty much it. You see, it's not great, but it'll be plenty good enough for us to get our bolt in there. I will probably spend about another 5 minutes or so just cleaning up this face with the chisel, but honestly, not more than about 5 minutes. That's 5 minutes total, not 5 minutes per. So I'm gonna do that real quick, and then I think we're gonna go back over to the bandsaw and see how this fits. All right. I got all the screws, all the bolts started in there. I think it's pretty all right. Some of them are a little harder to work than others, like this back one in particular. I can't really get to it very well either. I can just barely do it with my fingers, but I have to kind of jiggle the wood a little bit too. Maybe I should, oh there, it's got a little bit easier. And no, I'm not threading or stripping out the cast iron. It's just rubbing on the wood a little bit. But you know what? I think this is looking pretty darn good. Yeah, everything is flushed up real nice at the bosses anyway, and pretty much around the table. Let's see with this thing in here. That's fine. That'll probably snug up a little bit once we get these in. But I don't think I'm going to run them in. I just wanted to make sure that we fit, because running them in is kind of a chore. So I think we're going to leave them a little bit loose like this. Let's just get an idea what it looks like without these things. It'll be the first time. Oh yeah. Very nice. That is a table. All right, let's take this thing back off again and sand it to get the burn marks out and whatnot. Okay, I sanded this, not real well, but I sanded it up to 120. And now we're just doing a half and half mix of oil-based polyurethane, and actually not half and half, we're doing 1 part polyurethane to 3 parts mineral spirits. Kind of make like a wipe-on poly. And I have a old sweatshirt don't have any stain. I don't think I would want to stain it anyway. I mean, I have some really dark stain, but it's like really dark. I wouldn't want to stain it like that. And I don't think we need to stain it at all. All right, that seems to be covered. I think we'll leave it like that. Let it dry overnight and come down, sand it down, and put another coat on. All right, guys, I had just scratched this down to put the last coat of polyurethane on it, and then it dawned on me I have forgotten two things. One of them is kind of critical. The other one doesn't really matter. I could have done it at any point here. But so the first one that's not too big of a deal is some sort of a hole or a slot in here for that pin that goes into the side of the cast iron table. Not a big deal. That could have been done after finish. Be nice if it was done before, but could have been done after. The other thing that's a whole lot more crucial is the miter slot. So we need to have a dado cut in the front and the back of this extension table in order to allow us to have a miter slot to use a miter slot on the bandsaw. Now I kind of thought about forgetting about, just not even putting it on there, but I know there'll be that time where I'll want to use it and then I'll have to take all this stuff back off again just to be able to cut a couple dados in here to be able to use a miter slot. So let's tackle it now. It'll delay the project. It's going to put it back by a couple days because the finish and stuff like that, but it's best to just tackle it now. So let's mock this up back over the bandsaw like we had before, just clamp it in place and get those two things resolved. All right, this is easy enough. So we have this clamped in place like we've done before. I'm just going to put a couple little marks inside here where the miter gauge is. We're going to actually cut this a little bit larger, so I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing that's a 3/4 inch wide miter slot there, and we're going to go just a little bit wider and just a little bit deeper, because I don't want to have this wood front or back rail to interfere with the miter slot at all. I want everything to really kind of index off of the cast iron. Okay, now the pin. So that should be good enough. We'll transfer these lines to wherever we need to be able to cut it. I think we'll be able to do this on the table saw with the sliding table thing. Now this, let's put this in here, and it's mine. I don't know what your guys' is like, but mine has this hex head here, which I don't know. I'm kind of thinking about cutting off, to be honest with you, because I don't think it's really needed. I mean, kind of whack it in there like that. I could still grab it with my pliers and pull it out. I've never really had a need to, I mean, even though that's what I grab it with the pliers to pull it out, I've never really had to put a wrench on that for any reason. If we cut the head of this off, what would be nice too, let me move you over here just a little bit so you can see. But if we leave the head on, we definitely have to cut a slot here. Something that we'll see from the bottom side, which is fine. But if we cut the head off of this thing, I think we could just put a hole in here, which I think might be easier and probably a little bit better. All right, guys, I think I've decided. I think I want to cut the head off of this. I just checked it with a file. This is just mild steel. It filed really easy. So what I'm going to do is that we're going to use a hacksaw, cut the end off of there. And I think that while I'm at it, kind of modifying this a little bit, I'm going to file or grind a couple little flat spots on either side so that we can twist it with the pliers in the event that we need to. I think doing this is going to make life a lot easier, that we're just going to eliminate the largest part of this and we'll be able to drill a hole into the edge of this guy, and that will just be a lot cleaner, a lot easier, and probably more sturdy too. So let's get on that. All right, I'm kind of wrapping the end of this in a cloth to so that hopefully we don't booger up the ends of it that need to be smooth that go into the cast iron table. Now all I want to do is cut, oh, it's about 1/4 inch, I guess. Cut that head off of there. It's kind of cool too. It has a nice little shoulder to ride on. All right, let's smooth that out a little bit. Then, like I said, we're going to put a couple flat spots on here so it'd be a little bit easier to grab with the pliers in the event that we have to. That's probably all we need. Okay, the face or the front top surface is facing out here. So I'm just going to sort of correct this a little bit. Not much. And I think we're going to step into it. So this is about 3/8 of an inch in diameter. I have a 1/4 inch drill bit here. So what we're going to do is do a 1/4 inch hole, and then we're going to follow that up with a 3/8 inch hole to hopefully get us there without any blowout. Boy, that is not much of a wall there. If you see, that's very little bit there, about a 1/16 or a little bit more maybe. All right, you kind of see it sticking out there about 3/8 of an inch. I think this works out pretty good. Probably should get a few of the burrs off of this. But that slides in here. Like I said, this will get waxed after we do the final coat. Fits in there pretty good. Super. All right, now let's take this off and we'll cut our miter slots through here. You know what? I think before we do that though, let's just get an idea if that metal rail for the fence in the front, if that's going to have any clearance issues with this miter slot. It shouldn't. And the reason I say it shouldn't without even checking it is because it that fence was intended to fit on the mounts that are drilled and threaded into the cast iron table. So it should have no clearance issues whatsoever. But let's just double check it and make sure. All right, folks, what I'm going to do just to double check to make sure that we don't have any issues when it comes to the depth of this. So I believe it needs to be, I believe we're going to be shooting for 7/16. I just want to look at this here. So, okay, the metal rail, like I said, I don't really believe it's going to be an issue because this fence was intended to go on that saw the way it was with the cast iron table. But I'm measuring from the metal rail to the bottom of the fence here, and I'm coming up with pretty much right at 1/2 inch. And those, the miter slots, I just double checked it. They are 3/8 of an inch or darn close enough. It looks like they're a little bit deeper in some spots. So what I want to try to do is we want to make this dado in here to be right around 7/16 of an inch. That will give us plenty of clearance so we won't have an issue with either our dado running into the metal rail, which would be kind of unsightly, or the miter slot running into stuff on the wood here. So let's transfer these marks up to the top. Okay, let's transfer those lines up to the surface here. All right, that should be enough for us to go back over to the bench now and get rid of the waste in between. All right, let's just get rid of some of that junk before we get the router plane out. All right, pretty good. So long as we aren't more than half an inch, that's great. We're just a hair over 7/16. So that's fine. All right, let's kind of round over these edges just a little bit, not like we did here, but just kind of like we did on the inside, just to do them with the sandpaper. Great, now with those couple of corrections made, we can move on to actually putting the final coat on it. All right, guys, we are done with the finishing. Final coat looks great. Let's get over to the bandsaw and screw this on. I kind of roached out the holes in the wood table just a little bit. I think that helped. I wonder if some of the polyurethane finish got in there. And I am able to put this little socket up in the little relief hole that we cut for the bolts to fit into, but I can only get about one click at a time. Dudes, I am so stoked that we finally did this. This has been on the back of my mind for a long time, and I'm finally glad to have gotten this project, maybe not done, but that much closer to the goal line here. This is awesome. It's going to make this bandsaw a whole lot easier to use. So we went, what was about 14 inches square, so about a foot, about 1 square foot, and we've ratcheted that up now to about 4 square feet. That's awesome. It's about 25 inches this way and about 22 inches this way. And this is going to be a perfect amount of work surface for this bandsaw. One little issue, and there might be a couple other ones, but this wood is just a little bit higher, just a smidge higher than the cast iron table here. But like I said, I want to get a few miles on this and see if there's some other things we have to change, and then we'll start to resolve some of those issues here. This isn't really a big deal. You could just scrape it down with a paint scraper and then touch it up with some more polyurethane. So next though, we got to get a fence on this. You saw the fence we're going to use, so we have to modify that, cut it down to size, drill a bunch of holes in it, and get it to fit here and work okay. But that is going to be next time. So please hit the subscribe so you don't miss out on that. And thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Thank you, guys.